Shana Tova. In his book, Meditating on the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Letters, Levi Shmotkin teaches, there is a certain allure to thinking we don't have the possibility of change, personally or communally. In surrendering to our present condition, we relieve ourselves of the work that is required to progress. Despair can thus be relaxing, excusing us from the effort growth demands. So many of us in this room have experienced the threat of despair. We made too big of a mistake, we were hurt too deeply, or we believe that we just do not have what it takes. For some of us, there's just too much wrong in the world. We are too small to make a difference. Thankfully, however, we are a part of a tradition that teaches us that giving up is not an option. We are each worth the effort that it takes to change and to grow. Communally, we are a people who have encountered innumerable historical excuses for despair, and we have chosen hope instead, time and time again. Next week, with our martyrdom service with Eila Ezkara, we will reflect on the worst persecutions of our history, from the execution of 10 of our ancient sages, to the Crusades, to the destruction of Spanish Jewry, and finally to the Shoah, to the Holocaust. We will repeat the refrain, Eila Ezkara, v'nafshi alai eshpecha, al korotenu hamarot einai zolgot dim'a. These I recall, and my soul melts with sorrow. For the bitter course of our history, tears pour from my eyes. We acknowledge first our great need for sitting with sorrow. And at the same time, we repeat this refrain with a crowd of Jews around us, hundreds strong, in the midst of a service on the day we traditionally see as not only the holiest, but the most joyful day of the year. Even in the worst possible moments of our historical experience, we have hung on to our grief and still found a way to grasp onto hope and to survival time and time again. Today's Haftarah exists in one of those moments of our greatest despair. Historically, the prophet Jeremiah offers his call as Jerusalem and Judah fall to the Babylonians and the Jewish people are sent into exile. 100 years before the context of our Haftarah, the northern kingdom of Israel has already been taken over by the Assyrians. 10 out of 12 of our tribes has already been lost forever. Most of the book of Jeremiah prophesies the tragedy and destruction that will soon come to the Jewish people with that destruction of our first temple and the Babylonian exile. And yet, even knowing that there is no turning back from the events to come, our Haftarah highlights a Jeremiah who still holds on to hope. Their maidens shall dance joyfully, young man and old alike. I, God, will turn their mourning into joy. I will comfort them and cheer them in their grief. I will give their priests their fill of fatness, and my people shall enjoy my full bounty. Even with the loss our people had experienced at that point in history, and even with the loss that Jeremiah knows is soon to come, the prophet presents a God who will bring God's people back. The Jewish Study Bible comments on the verse, Mizarei Yisrael yikabetzenu, the one who scattered Israel will gather them. The image of scattering seeds, Jewish Study Bible teaches, depicts the restoration as something out of the ordinary, since there's no way to gather seeds that are already scattered for sowing. Regardless of what has been lost, of what should be impossible, Jeremiah insists that restoration and return are possible. Indeed, while the northern tribes do not return, the people of Judah will be restored to their land when the Persian Empire comes into power 50 years after the Babylonian exile. Change does happen, even when all hope seems to be lost. We read Jeremiah on Rosh Hashanah to bring our communal resilience into the personal, No matter what we have done or where we have been, teshuvah is possible. We can change and improve, and our situation can change and improve, no matter our past and our present. As a people who have tasted and expanded upon hope for thousands of years, our teachers and traditions carry potent tools for when we run into the personal trap of despair. First, our tradition pushes us into community. Some of our most important prayers and practices, like Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom, and Torah reading, require a minyan. When we show up, we know that we count, we matter. Our presence makes a tangible difference, regardless of how much worth we believe we possess on a particular day, regardless of whether we believe what Avinu Malkeinu says, Ki ein banu ma'asim, I have no deeds. Once we show up, we find ourselves in a community tasked with mitzvot such as visiting the ill, bikur cholim, and comforting the mourners, nichum avelim. We are surrounded by people who are actually commanded to care about us, and who, in reality, despite what we believe about ourselves, do in fact care about us. Even when we find ourselves at our lowest point, we too are still commanded to care for others in our community. Regardless of how we are feeling on a particular day, God still lays before us the responsibility to practice mitzvot, whether simply in how we treat the person next to us with the onslaught of volunteer opportunities, like teaching and cooking and leading prayer and beyond, that Jewish community provides. For those who have been in those depths and emerged, we have the ability to find others who are in the situation we endured and be a part of their healing process. We know that our personal experience, our personal knowledge, makes a tangible impact because of who we are and who we have experienced, not just because we're another person. In community, we are constantly reminded that we, as the unique individuals we are, can and do affect the lives of those around us, no matter what is going on at home or in the world around us. As I mentioned yesterday, too, we are part of a millennia-old tradition of Jewish communities providing tangible resources for those in our midst. At Congregation Beth Torah, we have social groups for every age and stage to bring ourselves out of the sometimes treacherous path of too much self-reflection. We have a rabbi, we have CBT Cares, who can both confidently provide a listening ear and some soup when you need it. Through organizations like Jewish Family Services and Bikur Cholim of Dallas, our Jewish community makes sure that no one has to endure hardship alone. Our community readily provides assistance with such needs as transportation, adoption, food, and counseling. When tragedy or even just particularly hard times hit, the Jewish community can help lighten the load of material needs so that we can have an easier time dealing with our emotional and spiritual needs. As we cannot always be in community, when we're in our own space, we can embrace moments of prayer throughout the day as anchor points. Our prayer can remind us of what and who we're grateful for, even through our distress, and our prayer can help us pinpoint what we need to ask from God, what we in our community need to get ourselves out of distress. When we do not know what we need, prayer gives us the opportunity to cry out to God, as we do in Tachanun, Va'anachnu lo neda ma na'aseh, and we do not know what to do, but our eyes are turned to you, God. We ask for God's guidance in where to go next, knowing that ours is a God who has looked after us throughout history, who has promised to look after us in times to come. Wisdom from Jewish tradition can go beyond the ancient as well. Throughout our Musaf service, I'll introduce a few different techniques that our modern sages have taught us, but I'll give one example now that I gave earlier this year too. Rabbi Sharon Brous gives us the example of taking a joy break in her book, The Amen Effect. Rabbi Brous writes of her friend Shifra's experience while in mourning for the loss of her perpetually joyful husband. In her husband's memory, Shifra, as Rabbi Brous teaches, made a commitment that every day through her year of mourning, she would go out of her way to experience 18 minutes of joy and then journal about it. Some of these joy breaks were with others, some were alone. Some took her to new places. Others had her bring greater intentionality into everyday experience. A lot of them brought her into nature. Once she danced by herself in the house. Learning from Shifra's experience, Rabbi Brous advises the readers to try just a few minutes each day of consciously doing something you absolutely love, just because you love it. Remember, joy does not preclude mourning, but lives inside of it. If we love fully, we should celebrate fully, even as we grieve deeply. For Rabbi Sharon Brous and her friend Shifra, just a few minutes a day of simple enjoyment can offer the energy and the inspiration necessary to keep moving through the grief and the anger that life is bound to throw at us. When we are grieving or when we feel immobilized or overwhelmed with fear or depression, one simple thing we can do is center ourselves with something we know we will enjoy. For me, it's a quick yoga practice or a break devoted to petting the dogs. It might also just be to notice and take an extra minute to stay when I'm enjoying something or when I'm enjoying the company of someone. Sometimes when I'm just in awe of my surroundings. These joy moments do not require a whole lot of decision-making. They do not do much to affect the state of our personal lives or the wider world around us. They are actions that remind us of what is worth fighting for and what is worth savoring for as long as we can. Maybe, as in Shifra's case, they are actions that remind us of someone or something we no longer have, that we can somehow still grasp right here and now, even if just for a moment. Regardless, these joy moments give us the relief, energy, and clarity of mind to proceed with courage, maybe even enthusiasm, when we encounter the painful and sometimes even the unfixable. In times when hope can seem impossible, these little moments of joy can be acts of resistance. We will be able to make enough of a difference so that we and those around us can continue to experience joy and love and laughter. Our next generation will continue to carry that potential for joy and love and laughter. Even when we have experienced great loss or find ourselves in a situation we know we cannot improve in our lifetime, the hope that we foster today will enable those who will live long after us to fight for a world powered by our values, powered by our dreams for the future. Today, we are in another one of those eras in which we as a Jewish people could reasonably turn to despair. It has been 717 days since October 7th, and the war shows no signs of slowing. According to numbers from the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs a few days ago, 50 hostages are still being held in captivity in Gaza, with only 22 believed to be alive. Israel and the international Jewish community is grieving, and rising rates of anti-Semitism provide no relief. And yet, as Mike Precker shares on Shabbat each week, stories of innovation continue to come from Israel. A new whiskey made by Kibbutz Be'eri, revolutionary fixes to water shortages, and yes, submissions every year to Eurovision. Here, in the Dallas Jewish community, Run for Their Lives still meets each Sunday morning with the certainty that their voices can lead to the release of the remaining hostages. They run with the conviction that their feet and their voices can save lives, regardless of how many have already died. They run knowing that safety and peace can only be achieved if our people hold on to the optimism it takes to keep working towards it. Hatikva, the hope, is, after all, our nation's anthem. Although this time, the peace and safety we hope for will take less than 2,000 years, please God, with the historical creation of the State of Israel, we know the awesome power that a hope held for so long can have. When we consider how much we as a Jewish people have endured, how long we have held on to the conviction that we could not only make it through, but really, truly thrive, we can return to our own grief and pain and remind ourselves that we have the ability to break through. We may not find the energy to move forward today or tomorrow. We may need to set aside today and tomorrow for crying out to God and our loved ones. Our tradition does, after all, encourage and build in that time. On the day after tragedy, however, our tradition demands us to look for a way out of despair. We are needed, we are loved, and we have a whole year ahead of us and a community to join us as we gather the scattered seeds and plant something entirely new. Shana Tova, may it be a sweet and good year. And I would love to invite up Francine to lead us in Musa.